we'll go ahead and get started. Here it is about 2:30 on December 21st, and this is I believe this is the fifth webinar Talbot County Public Schools is hosting, and this one in particular is probably perfect timing related to understanding the pros and cons and dangers of social media, especially when we head into winter break, Christmas break over the next week and a half, and a lot of gifts are going to be given and a lot of time. Maybe unstructured time is going to be offered. And so we're hoping that this is going to provide a preview into what we could do to safeguard our kids. So I'm Dr. Rob Schmidt with Talbot County Public Schools and work as the mental health coordinator.
And I'm Corporal Samuel Thaggart with the Talbot County Sheriff's Office Criminal Investigations Division.
And so we're pretty fortunate to partner with our Talbot County Sheriff's Office, since especially they provide a lot of our school resource officers, in fact, all of them, I believe, in our schools. So we really have a great partnership. So we're pretty fortunate to have some expertise here. So we're going to go ahead and get started. I just want to make sure everybody understands what we hope to do and come out of this is that we want to, for our parents and our community members, we want to increase awareness and understanding how social media affects our kids. And we'll cover some of the pieces of that in their social and emotional development. Learn the many pitfalls that await your child's connection if left, of course, unsupervised, and increase, action steps for our parents to build in safeguards and monitoring to prevent, hopefully, anything from, happening as the kids experiment with a lot of different things on social media and are exposed to a lot of different things on social media. So just to give you an updated, this is as of October, just for the month of October in this study that monitors accessibility to all of the provisions offered in social media to the main players, mainly, as you can see. And this is in millions, the many millions that are in Facebook as the number one accessible social network for people in general. YouTube, WhatsApp, I don't know half of these. So Corporal Sam, I don't know if you want to help me out with some of these.
Yeah, no problem. I mean, there's the common ones that everybody sees a lot: Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, Snapchat will probably be pretty commonly known amongst everybody, but there's still a lot of apps that are out there. I mean, apps are probably in the tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands now. There's no way to know every app, but you just need to be aware of what's on your kid's phone is the primary concern, what they're using.
Exactly. Yep. And so you can see by the millions how this is just for 1 month of this past October. So it's pretty actually incredible what's going on there. And then, when we worry about, our kids and what we worry about what our parents are most concerned about with their kids accessing social media. And this particular study, a fairly recent study across the United States for ages 13 to 17, these are parents that were interviewed, and they talked about who are parents more likely to be concerned about their teens seeing explicit content on social media. They were more worried about that than they were actually what or how social media affects them related to anxiety and depression and low self-esteem. So in the questionnaire, this looked at several questions, and this was looking at being exposed to explicit content. So most parents were really, really worried about that, somewhat worried about it, and not really worried about it. And then wasting too much time on these sites, waste of time. 42%, 28%, again, not really so much concerned about that. And Corporal Sam, I didn't know if you wanted to take the next couple.
Yeah, sure.
Related to being just.
Well, I was going to say we had. Go ahead.
Oh, I was going to hit the next one then. Being distracted from homework. Parents really not so much. I mean, they are concerned, but not really as concerned. Somewhat concerned. Really, if you look at 38%, it's kind of like some are, so almost 50%. Like some are, some really are not really worried about how their too much time is on social media is going to affect completing homework.
One of the big ones for us to go with the being exposed to the explicit content is going to be the sharing too much about your personal life. It kind of falls into the different category of giving away your personal information, name, date of birth, social security number. Kids just don't realize that kind of information given away on the internet could be critical for someone stealing your identity or using your information against you.
And do you feel like we're getting the message out there to the kids? Like, are parents getting this out there so that the kids know some kind of parameters, like what to do, what not to do? Or is it pretty much, would you say, just in general, not really like taught to what to provide?
I got you. A lot of it's going to be on the, the parent to self-educate. I mean, there's no way that any one person could sit you down and tell you everything you need to know about the apps your kids are using. You're going to have to do that research on your own to see. But I mean, I think it's through presentations like this that you put together that trying to get that information out there to the public. And then obviously if parents have any follow-up questions, I think our information was on the first slide. They can reach out with any kind of questions they have.
And it'll also, right, exactly. It'll be on the last slide also, the first and last. Being harassed and bullied by others, little, really not so much concerned about it. Experiencing problems with anxiety and depression, you can see 47% of the parents that they're not really worried about that, about their child's, how this is going to affect them mental health wise. And what about self-esteem? I mean, it's like the rule of thumb that kids base their likes on their self-worth. And when I'm sitting alone in my room for hours and not really one-on-one or in person having friends, then I'm basing my worth while I'm isolated. And if I'm already the card stacked against me, I'm already isolated. And if I feel like I'm not getting the likes online, that's a double whammy. And right now we are in big trouble with the social and emotional development, especially over the last 5 years. Actually, it was going in this direction before the pandemic. This next slide, we're going to get into some information, some really concerns. This is from the U.S. Surgeon General, Dr. Murthy. And, what he's talking about here is that the issues advisory is on the dangers of social media's toll on our children's mental health. And parents, I don't know if you are aware, but right now the United States is in a significant mental health crisis with our children and adolescents. So that would be below, most studies, it's below age 24. So I would say from 4 to 24, probably in that range, it's an extreme mental health crisis in the United States. And then you have the services that are not ready or available to our kids and families, or if they are, they would be more so related to, unfortunately, because of the supply and demand, that families will be put on a wait list to have access to therapy. Social media would you say the social media does have some benefits overall? I mean, I don't want to make too paranoid parents in our community.
I'd say there's definitely positives. I mean, reach out, connection to other people, being able to keep track of those you may be far away from, family and loved ones in other locations. I mean, those are all obviously the benefits and the reasons that these companies are doing so well.
Right, with advertising and would you say advertising and yeah. And then the flip side of that, I mean, there is some really good things that are going on, some really good benefits in being in touch around the world, actually, with maybe friends and relatives. But the flip side of that too, some of the indicators that pose a risk of harm to the mental health and well-being of our kids. And we're going to touch on that. And then we look at the other side, the extreme of this, the last few slides of the many, predators and pitfalls that await unknown to kids and families sometimes, how they present themselves. But the CDC, or the Centers for Disease Control, on their research on social media usage found that 95% of the kids, and these were more so like 8th through 12th grade kids, youth, that actively use social media on a daily basis. And a lot of the topics that were found to be related to what they are accessing is content related to violence, sexual content, bullying, and then the exposure to, I should say, bullying and harassment. And, Corporal Fagert, if you want to add anywhere along these, you can. Just let me know. Increased depression in middle and high school students. So we talked about the national crisis related to mental health issues, and it really does relate to the diagnosis. And we talked about this in our last webinar. Depression and anxiety are pretty much in most cases brother-sister types of diagnosis in our kids. And we look at the brain development, and there was a study done that looked at, kids that checked their phones on a regular basis and those that did not, and how that affects the brain and the brain development. And it's almost related to addictions, when we're addicted to drugs or alcohol, that sensation of wanting it, the seeking the pleasure principle, the self-physical fulfillment. And we found in the studies that, you know, the part of the brain that's most affected is the amygdala, and that is on the left side. You can see the little yellow. It's actually shaped like an almond, and you can look that up on the internet yourself. And how that regulates, that is like if you were thinking about the amygdala in our brain, it's almost like that of an air traffic controller at an airport. It looks and filters through possible dangers, but also things that are working right. In the studies that were done, it looked at the processes of how social media affects, you know, our fear response, our danger, our reaction, our behaviors and our emotions. But it also looked at like when I'm seeking rewards and punishment. So if I cannot have access to my phone, my brain's craving accessibility to the phone. It's almost like an addiction, and it is. And it's proven in many studies that how the internet and actually the social media is an addiction. And how it forms the structural components of our brain. If we're getting too much of it, it does definitely change the structure of our brain, of the amygdala especially. And what that really is mostly related to is our emotional causes or related to emotional disturbances in our process of how we process our surroundings and our ability to crave and want at all costs to get to what we need to self-fulfillment. Corporal Fager, would you say like about, you know, addiction is broad. So an addiction, no matter what that addiction is, right? So working, you know, with your experience with an addiction, whether it be drugs or alcohol, or even like the want of social media, if I can't get to it, like, what am I doing to get to it? Like, what have you seen just in general with any sort of addiction? I know it's broad, but
Yeah,
it's
no,
the same principle.
you're going to see whatever it takes to, when there's an addiction, a true clinical addiction for something, they're going to do whatever it takes to get to it. If it's for a cell phone, they're going to, you know, go to extreme means to gain access to that cell phone. That's why when we get into what the recommendations are for the parents to how to help avoid some of these pitfalls, that's where those are going to be helpful. I think most people out of this.
Exactly. Yeah, we'll definitely come back to that. Exactly right. Youth who spend on average 3 hours a day have higher rates of anxiety. Now, 3 hours a day, it doesn't seem like much, but when your brain is that connected to the many, I mean, if you look at 1 minute, if you're on your social media for 1 minute, how much you have access to, I mean, your brain just flips, and just all you have to do is look at the thumbs or the screen swipes of somebody unsuspecting that you're watching. And it's just incredible how fast the mind is going in that, you know, 3 hours a day, that's quite a lot. And so how that is related to, when we talked about the amygdala, anxiety, and it's related to eating disorders, suicide, and depression.
I was going to add in one thing there, if you don't mind. It was from the,
Sure.
on that last point, it was from the American Academy of Child and Adolescent Psychiatry from 2020. They talked about excessive screen time. They didn't do the 3 hours per day in this one, just excessive screen time in general. But they said it's associated with sleep disturbance and mood issues, decreased academic performance, lower rates of physical activity and weight gain, low self-confidence, poor self-image, and decreased social interaction needed to foster interpersonal and relationship skills. So I could say it piggybacks off what you have there in your point.
Yeah, no, exactly. And just, you know, just figure you're on social media, you're not exercising. I mean, you're, you know, you're maybe surfing the internet, your brain is, you know, with, and not to mention what you're looking for, but all of the advertisements that pop up and that your eyes go to immediately. So it's almost like your brain is on NASCAR when you're on social media, because there's so many things that are going up, and then you're checking what other people are saying. I mean, there's, again, we talked about it, the third slide is that there are so many sites that you can go to that's ready accessible at any time, day or night. It's 24/7. I threw this in there because I just want to give everyone a heads up that the Maryland Assembly of School-Based Health Centers, and we have health centers in Talbot County Public Schools especially, and that Dr. Vital is giving a talk. It's actually following up on what we're talking about here. So it's perfect timing. January 17th at 3 o'clock, and you could register, and I have the link below. You can also take a screenshot of this, and so that you have that registration link. It is, I believe it's free, but you do have to register. And it's talking about exactly kind of the things we're touching on here. This is more specific to the mental health crisis related to social media. So you're going to look at like about childhood depression, its effects and mechanisms of associate with the media, with social media, and mental health in youth. And it's going to really focus on depression and suicide because there are definitely correlational studies there. And if you're getting into suicide, you're definitely going to hit on, or she will, Dr. Vida will definitely hit on, bullying and body shaming and all of those that are related to that. So that's pretty good. So I'll leave that up just for a few more seconds. You can take a picture. January 17th at 3:00. And this is really perfect. It's going to follow up on what we're doing here, maybe a little bit more specific to the mental health piece. So this is where we're really getting into this scary piece. And this is some of the latest FBI statistics that I found online with the sources below. And I don't know if you wanted to touch base on this. You're more of an expert than I am when you're getting into the pitfalls that await, because these are it. These are people that position themselves on kid sites.
Yeah, if you want, I can run down these through you. The daily average of 500,000 online predators. Most vulnerable ages between 12 to 15 make up over 50% of all online sexual exploitation. 89% of sexual advances directed at the same age group most often occur in internet chat rooms or instant messaging.
Yeah, let me touch. I spoke
Yeah.
with, I don't know if you call it, I guess, an agent in Homeland Security in Baltimore City who works next to someone that works in this, that offers undercover stuff, and talked about that most of this does occur in the chat rooms. If I could just, divide and conquer, get you in on a chat room, and I thought it was a chat room, but it's just you and I, right? And that's where I have my opportunity.
Yeah, you'll see the movement oftentimes from sort of a group chat area or open chat room. They will then move them to a private messaging and then move them off to apps that they feel are more secure, or harder to catch the predator.
In the chat rooms?
Yeah, well, they use the chat rooms, at open chat room, group chat, to then identify somebody. They move to then one-on-one chatting. They then move to these other applications that they think are more secure, more difficult to catch them on.
Yeah, that the next couple are scary. 20% of kids that are online in social media have been sexually solicited online. And again, this 75% didn't tell their parents. 'Cause maybe they didn't know the advances that were being made socially online, verbally, and maybe didn't take that as, the threat or seeing that as a threat. And when you get, that's the scary piece when adults don't know about this stuff. 90% of parents will never know of such inappropriate contact. That is even scarier, and we're going to talk about some of the things that parents can do in a few slides, but 14% of kids met online predators in person, and 75% of these met more than once. And what happens when you get into these kinds of things? What kind of scary things like we're thinking about here? Like, because we think it doesn't happen in Easton, right? We think we're, a smaller rural community. So stuff like that doesn't happen as frequent as DC or Baltimore or Philadelphia. So when we think things can't happen, they're actually happening anywhere in every town. Just like drugs, it's in every town in the United States, and we do everything we can to safeguard the kids. But when you get into meeting predators, that is taking it to a whole different level. Sex offender statistics, 85% of online predators are hands-on child abusers, physically on hands, right there. So again, once I can divide the child from the group, one-on-one, then build up to meet in person, then you're looking at the many things that can sadly go wrong. And again, 90% of parents are not even aware of this is even happening. And this is where it gets scary. So if you think about this, as parents, look, I can't be with my child, 8 hours a day. I don't know what they're watching. I can't be with them. How do I know? I got to work. I work 2 jobs. So my child's home with the babysitter, or my child's home supposedly doing homework. I mean, what can I do? I mean, some of the safeguards here, what can I do to just be more aware or I don't know.
Yep. I think this is the best part of the presentation and trying to provide the help to parents of what to look out for. I think some of the best things to do are familiarize yourself with these applications. You know, if you hear your child constantly talking about Snapchat or Snap, download the app yourself, kind of learn about it, walk through it, familiarize yourself what capabilities that app has. Can you message somebody person to person? Who are the people that your child has friended on these accounts? Familiarization of yourself. Also, a lot of apps and phones or tablets will have screen time settings. You can set up time limits for when these apps can be used or the device at all. Another idea is no screen zones. That's one of the best ones I've heard of. Bedrooms and bathrooms, there's no tablets, no phones allowed in those areas. At night, when you go to charge them, you charge them out in the living room so that there's not that extended period of time where you think your child's asleep, but online predators trying to gain access to them while you think they're sleeping. Those are some of the best ones I've heard of for trying to monitor and keep an eye, because it's like you said, there's no way to keep 24/7 contact on it. So you use the tools that you have.
You know, and again, teaching our kids, you know, please, and you talked about this earlier about sending any sort of personal, please don't, you know, we got to let our kids know not to send any sort of photos. And it's kid, you know, kids are kids, right? So they're so easy to manipulate to get what I want. And just send a picture, just send a picture of your hair, send a picture of your feet. I mean, it's all kind of people out there. And then it works its way in between. And so that's where you really, really have to monitor this stuff as best as you can. And, you know, if you're taking a picture of something, or if you're showing something, it probably more than likely is on the phone. But, you know, kids are so vulnerable, especially if they're isolated. So from friends. So, again, I have worked with, people that have done this in the past in mental health and have worked with victims of this in the past as the other end of flip side of this. And, you know, the main thing with the left side of this of people that are predators is that they position themselves to enter the child's brain, and they know what they like, or they know where they hang out, or meet me here. They know this, they've already hunted, they've already done the safe work. I mean, the pre-work leading up to this. And so it's kind of scary. And then if the kid, again, we talked about it being earlier, if they're really vulnerable, maybe home isn't as connected or as loving maybe as they should, or it is in a loving home, but I'm doing this by myself because I don't have a lot of contact outside other than school, maybe. So a few friends at school, not a whole lot. Again, summer break, summertime, you know, you're getting into June, July, and August is very a vulnerable time. So again, it is looking at both ends of this, and you probably also, Corporal Fagert, have many stories along this line, sadly, too, of how kids can be engulfed into this.
Yeah,
You
it,
know,
it usually occurs in times where parents don't think their child would have access to these websites or technology. You think your kid's asleep or they're off at camp, or you know they're just over in the next room,
a
the living room.
sleepover. What about sleepovers, right?
Yeah,
You know,
it's the time
exactly.
where they think they're unmonitored that it just, you don't even know it's happened. And like the earlier stat said about the parents never even then being notified when it does happen.
Yeah, 90%. Or I think it was 95%. Make sure that they use some sort of privacy settings. You kind of talked about this also, to restrict access to online profiles. Warn them against sharing. You also talked about this. Any sort of personal identifying information, address, about where you live. I live on the east side, south side. I live over by the ball field. I live by Easton High School. And I live up in Chapel District by the elementary school. Any sort of location information, providing any of that stuff is, you know, again, gives me any sort of information where I can lead next. Point out the dangers of cyberbullying, of course. And again, parents, or if you have members in Talbot County Public Schools, you know, if you have any concerns about any sort of bullying in general, you know, you can contact the school. You can also access online to complete the bullying forms anytime 24/7. That is available on the Student Services website on Talbot County Public Schools website. So you would click on Student Services and supports. Phones with GPS, about not sharing I know in some high school relationships, they do the, oh my God, I'm going blank here. I'll give you my phone number so you can track me, right? What is it called? Oh my gosh. I'm looking
Talking
here.
about sharing location data?
Like Life 360. I'm sorry. Like, yeah, like, yeah, with the lifeline right behind you. Yeah, like Life 360 that, you share, you give your information. And then if I have a girlfriend, she has this, or a boyfriend, and then we break up, and then I could track you, right?
Yep.
And it gets scary. Any of that kind of stuff gets scary. Ensure apps do not have access to any sort of personal information. Again, if I'm in my own comforts of my own room or my own home, your guard is probably more so down, and you're not feeling an uncomfortable position, and much more willing to share things because you feel the false sense of safety in your own home. And all the while, the predator's there, and they're doing everything that you can to extract any sort of information from you. So, again, just that monitoring piece and making sure we're aware of what our kids are doing. Being a parent, I know it's hard. Again, a lot of parents are working several jobs, or have other things going on, but to monitor constantly, again, I tell parents about this stuff, especially, because the statistics are very similar to suicide. About, 90% of the child and adolescent suicides, friends knew about it before the parents found out about it, because up to 3 months in advance, clues are given. And these are very similar parallel information. When I saw the 95% of parents are unaware, but usually sometimes peers are aware of it. They'll share some of this stuff with their friends. So if any of this is brought to your attention, the parents, to please get a hold of the school or the parent, and we could try to figure this out and pull in, any sort of resources that, to help, because to discard it is not a good thing, because it's only going to increase. Did you want to cover these here?
Yeah, sure. This is again going into the advice for the parents about telling your children to be extremely wary when communicating online with people they do not know in the real world, which is going to be almost everybody they meet online. Have children use appropriate screen names and strong passwords. That goes into the letting your personal information get out. If you have a weak password, like password, somebody can easily hack into your account. And then if you do have any personal information in there, then they'll have access to all of that, or at least be able to then almost like an identity theft, pretend to be you through one of these online personas and hold your account hostage, which can be equally frustrating or cause problems for you. And then next one is never allow them to meet in online contact without permission and supervision. Sort of the no going to meet strangers, the same rule online. Tell them that making any kind of threat online, even if they just think it's joke, is a crime. And that is when you do see threats, these mass threats you hear about online, or specific threats directed at other people. It's obviously something to avoid.
Yeah, and sometimes I do hear, if I send one picture, they'll hold that as ransom over your head to make you do more things.
Yeah, sextortion or
Yeah.
revenge pornography is typically what that's getting into. Once they have one image, then they will use that as the leverage for many, many more. It never stops with the one. The one is just the fulcrum almost to lever
I'll send it
everything
to
else
all
they
your
think about.
friends if you don't, meet my
Yeah.
demands, right? And
Yep.
which is like, yeah.
That's why harping on never sending any images to anyone is such a big.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. See, the things, and that's one thing about the developing mind when you get into, school age kids, is that not thinking about the ramifications of how what I do send, how that may affect me or what it can cause. And then I'm also setting myself up, like we talked about just now, the sextortion piece is that, I have this one image that if you do, if you don't do or meet me here or do this, that I'm going to send this out to all of those people that are your friends that I have access to also. So it kind of does get really scary. Any sort of inappropriate contact between an adult and a child, I mean, we have to make sure that we teach our kids, your gut is mostly right, overrides your heart. And so if you think it doesn't feel right, you got to let an adult know. And that's the message we have to send to our kids. But the concern is like, what do I do if I'm meeting with somebody and they're talking about, they sent these pictures and it didn't work out, something happened, or I don't want these pictures of my child online. Like, you know, what else can parents do? Because as far as I know, when I send a picture, that's out there forever.
Yep. So one of the best tools I found out about recently was the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. They call it the Take It Down tool. The website's linked there on the center of the page. It can be done anonymously or not. Essentially, you provide the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children with information. It takes you through step by step, and through their affiliate websites, companies like Facebook, Snapchat, they are able to get that content removed from the internet so that it's no longer out there. So if there's explicit photos of somebody, they will assist you with attempting to remove those from the internet. And they can do that anonymously, or if you need help, you can come into the sheriff's office and we can obviously assist with that kind of case as well.
And is that free? I mean,
Yes, absolutely. It's a free, it's public
Okay.
website. You can go on. The process, I've utilized the process before in cases. You just literally follow along with the steps. It's super simple to use. It's a great tool.
and you know, I know we think that stuff is out there for forever, but this is really a relief to know. I mean, you know, for our parents to know that if anything is out there that's sent off, I didn't mean to hit the send button. My finger was on it, but I was, you know, teetering back and forth, and I hit it and send it, and that I want to be able to take it back. And so for parents to have this, having access to this, and then the partnership with the Talbot County Sheriff's Office, this is great to know if you're trying to figure this out on your own and you cannot to contact. And the last, you know, slide we have here, I just want to make sure everybody is aware that, you know, our contact information, because you can access Corporal Fagert and myself, and mainly the corporal, because he's the expert with this, walking you through and navigating through, you know, the process to get any sort of things removed, or working in partnership with the National Center. But overall, in general, it's pretty scary how vulnerable sometimes our kids can be at different points. And then the predators that are await out there in the community, and actually nationally, actually internationally, would you say internationally too, really?
Absolutely. We have had several cases where the predators were international from foreign countries.
Wow. Wow. Not here, right? I mean,
Unfortunately, it's an international problem. But like you were
Yeah.
saying, the no screen zones, the no screen times, and then monitoring by the parents are three great steps to try to help protect the children at home here.
Yeah, and you know, parents, I know it's difficult because I know part of setting rules and limits, and we talked about that in one of our previous webinars also, is that, you know, the pros and cons of setting limits. We talked about that, but setting limits also means following up with consequences. And some of those consequences are at times, I know as parents, it's taking away the phone, or I don't like to say I'm taking your phone. You have chose to lose your rights and privileges of the phone that I'm paying for. So as a parent, if you're paying for the phone, I know you have different thoughts about this, and I have different thoughts about this, but you know, if you're paying for the phone, you should have access to the ID number or password to get into your child's phone if you are paying for it. And it is not a bad thing to randomly check that every now and then. I know it sounds weird, but knowing what's out there and what awaits. I did when my kids were younger, of course, paying for it. You know, I would check their phone, would let them know part of the deal is that I have your access, and I will check your phone and your searches. Just, you know, I don't know what I'm going to do. I may not do it. May do it once a year, may do it once a week. I don't know. But just to double check. And it wasn't so much about them, but who they're contacting, the people that are sit and wait for kids and they set traps for them. So, you know, so that's what I do. I know for parents, a lot of parents find that difficult and a little bit intrusive. And the intrusive part is until something happens, because it's never going to happen to my kid, would you say? Corporal, would you say it's never
You
going
hear
to
that
happen?
a lot. I think you were right with the upfront about it. You tell them from the get-go, this is how it's going to be, or you're not going to have it. I think that's a great approach to take. You tell them up front that part of you having this phone is when I want, wherever I want, I can check this phone.
And if you change the password, let me know, right? Because I need to know. But, and I kind of set that when they first got their phone. I think it was in high school. I think they were late bloomers with social media. I didn't want them to have it until 9th grade. And I know I was called not good things with my friends and all that stuff. But regardless of that, being a parent is very difficult. And you have to set rules and limits and parameters of use. And so when I did part of the deal, when they wanted their phone so bad, part of the deal was if you get this phone, I have access to it and until I stop paying for it. Of course, now they're older, so it's kind of a little bit weird, but I wouldn't do that, But yeah, but parents have to be parents, and it's not easy being a parent, and you should check your phones periodically. Not so much about them, but about, again, I'll keep repeating myself here, to the many pitfalls that await. Do you have any lasting words of advice from your experience and, working in criminal investigations for parents of anything else related to social media?
I just think it's like we kind of already covered. The big things are being, as a parent, monitor what they're doing, have access to those devices or those accounts. The no screen zones and the no screen times are both equally important as well. You don't want the phones going into the bathrooms or the bedrooms at night. If you need to charge them, leave them out in the living room. That way everybody knows where they are. Nobody's doing anything. I
Right.
think those are great tools to help protect the kids.
Yeah, and Dr. Vital is going to be talking about that in her webinar coming up also. And I'll go back to that slide real quick, just so you have that. Make sure you have that. But she's going to talk about, like, when your kids are on social media or on a computer right before they go to bed, how that affects their brain, even though when they're sleeping, and how that contributes to anxiety and depression. But let me go back to that slide. But just a heads up, on January 24th would be the next webinar. And that's on, the CDC back in the early 2000s talked about, take time to talk, make time to listen, and 15 minutes a day, quality time with your child without any sort of social media. Can you believe that? That's fighting words. You're taking my phone away. What, Mom? But at the dinner table, just good quality time where you can talk about the day, talk about what they're doing at school. And part of the problem is the lack of communication between our kids and us as parents. Sometimes we think our kids are making it okay, and they may be struggling. Again, just remember this. When it comes to suicide, parents, we are the last to find out. And, in mental health, or, I've worked with doctors in the past, I've worked with construction workers, and the sad stories that I hear is that we had no idea our child was even having these thoughts. And having done thousands of suicide evaluations over the last 33 years, I've heard a lot of sad stories and a lot of great stories. It's just about communicating with our children and taking the initiative and just learning about what they're doing. We think as they get older, we can pull back, but we actually need to pull closer, because then, the chances of doing things and the intensity of doing things increases. So let me go back to the slide, because you're going to hear more about this from Dr. Vital, from Johns Hopkins. You have this, and this is, the social use and how it affects our developing brains and anxiety and depression in our adolescents. So if you can access this is great. You're going to access that to register, and then we can go from there. And should you have any questions, please reach out to Corporal Fagert and myself. And that last slide again, one more time before we call this one till the next time, is right there. And like I said, I'm just an email away. I do check my emails over break. So if you send me an email right there, rschmidt@Talmadge Schools, I'll look that over. And if I have concerns or a flag goes up for me, we will consult with, the Talbot County Sheriff's Office, or steering that right direction. So I really want to thank everyone. Corporal, I cannot thank you enough for being a part of this, because, it adds a lot of credibility, your experience and the association with, our partnership with the Talbot County Sheriff's Office. So.
You stole my thunder. I was going to thank you for putting this all together and having me on.
Yeah. So you guys have a great Christmas break. Have a great winter break. Take time to spend quality time with your family. And like I said, as Talbot County School employees, we are here. I'm accessible. And so reach out should you have any questions going forward. And if there are any concerns coming back to school, reach out to your school counselor at your school, and you have my email. You guys have a great, safe one. And thank you very much.
I have a question.
We can take questions.
I'm the phone icon. Yeah.
I didn't know we could do that, but if we can, why not?
Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
I'm on the phone. I've got it on the screen, but I don't have me. You can't. I don't have my camera on. I was just wondering if you were going to send the slides. Could you send the slides that you just went through?
I don't know where to send them. Oh, you know what?
Okay.
You know what? I'm sorry. This is being taped right now, and it's going to be on the Talbot County Public School website. So this
great.
will be
Okay.
on there. This will be on there. Yes.
All right. Awesome. Thanks so much.
Okay, if you send me an email, I can also send you the slide presentation.
Okay, I'll do that. Thank you so much.
Okay, have a great one. You guys take care. Any
Yep,
more
too.
questions? We're good? Okay,
We're
you
good.
guys, all
Thanks.
right. Safe,
Okay,
safe trips. All right.
bye.
Bye-bye.
See you, Rob.
All right, see you. Thanks so much.
No problem. Thanks again, man. Great
All
job.
right, man. It's not a problem.
Bye.